All right, I'm doing a little bit of an early show today. Get used to the idea. Let's get this started, okay? I don't have time for any bullshit. Listen, hit that like and subscribe, will you? What's wrong with you? Just do it. And the Sparks guy will be on in a minute. But listen, nobody needs this kind of look. I've been floating around in this godforsaken zero cheese, okay? No pizza. I don't know what this spaceship has on it. It's got one. I don't even know if it's a toilet. It's the most comfortable place for me to hang out, but it's basically like a vacuum you hook up to your. I mean, it's fun. Don't get me wrong, but I don't need this. Anyway, just like and subscribe and what else? Patreon, something, super chat like an asshole, and it's important that when you hey, get the all right, just get back in your room. Show me. Shut up. Apologize, folks. That won't happen again. He gets out of his cage sometimes, and I feel bad, because he gets all pent up and he starts whining, and then I forget what a dick he is, and I let him run around the ship for a little while, and then he starts, obviously, he starts messing with a retroactive vortex scanner. Yeah, it's a new unit. Anyways, it's the only thing that can allow us to, basically get to our galaxy and back to yours on a regular schedule. Do you like this? Is this playing well? As part of the myth of the show. I think we should do that. I think we should eventually. I might actually have to build this motherfucker to get out of here. So and you're all welcome. Believe me, when I build a space station, it's going to be a crowd pleaser. It's going to basically be like a giant stadium, and there will be pretzels, I think is the name of the movie. So welcome to the show, everybody. I'm on a little early because I felt bad about I was late last night because of the drive, but also I didn't get to do a show on Tuesday, and there's a bunch of shit like stacking up that I feel like we have to address, because I find that in this ridiculous goddamn like tumultuous news cycle that we're all in, if I don't sort of put plant a flag in, or it's not even like a flag. It's like when you're climbing a mountain and you're freehand rock climbing, and you have to put an anchor in the rock so that what you're attached. You've got a good solid attachment for the next thing you're trying to tie together. Otherwise, you'll forget it in the tumult of trying not to fall. I don't know. It's a terrible analogy, but you get my point. There's just shit to cover all the goddamn time. And not the least of which is, and let's see, first of all, hi, chat room. Hello. Can I just say, there are a couple of things. Many people were wondering whether Pete Hegseth was like the perfect guy for Trump to pick, or even good at all. And hello, CSL. And one of the, and I happen to think he is. I'm a controversial point. I think Hegseth is the perfect SecDef for Trump, because they both have the same penchant for hiring useless, self-involved, egomaniacal, worthless assholes that they put in charge of really important positions where life and death and the values of America and the quality of life here are on the line, right? They both have a tendency to do those. And then, like, many people know, and maybe they don't. I don't know. I don't know. No, I don't want to tell you that. But there's been a purge at the Pentagon purge. And in the process of that, there's after the Signalgate thing where Trump was like, why are you asking about that? Nobody cares. Behind the scenes, he was flipping the fuck out at everybody. He swore at Hegseth's team about how Elon was going to the Pentagon, and at the same run, he was yelling at Waltz, apparently. And nobody's really doing well. Remember, they were supposed to fix all this shit, and he was supposed to coast for the next 3 years and 9 months. And it's not working out so much. And so internally, White House internal knife fighting blamed for Pentagon suspensions. Okay, no, let's start here. I love you guys at the Daily Beast, but the Pentagon suspensions were because of the actions of the people involved and their inability to hide how amazingly shitty those actions are. Sharing classified documents, possibly leaking stuff to not to the press, but people like the fucking Heritage Foundation, as far as we know, or the Russians. And we'll get to that in a bit with Doge. Hashtag Doge is a goddamn heist. And that is becoming clearer and clearer to the people of this country, thanks to you guys, the sparklers. That's right. Hashtag Doge is a heist. And yours truly beating that thing like a dead horse, because people need to recognize, like, its ineffectiveness and the opaqueness of the employees and all that kind of stuff. It are subsidiary scandals to the greater scandal that it is a fucking heist. And we will dive into that even more in the coming days. But primarily, if you look, this is what, by the way, everybody in the White House looks like when Trump farts loudly and they're all pretending not to notice. Like, seriously, it just looks like. And Hegseth's like, I'm on duty. What was that? You're like, you're damn straight you're on duty. Duty cleanup. Okay, so 3 people have been suspended so far from Hegseth's sec def group. Let's see, Douglas Maggie, blah, blah, blah. There was a bunch of people yelling, who cares? The internal knife fighting is intensifying, is what this guy says. Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, J.D. Vance, and Susie Wiles helped shut down Israel-USA joint attack on Iran's New York Times. This probably explains why Hegseth's aides were now being fired for supposed leaks. We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that story. And this idea that they helped shut down the Israel-USA joint attack on Iran is not a bad thing. Like, that's war. That's enormous. Like, that is a real war against a real country with a real military, not like Iraq, not like Afghanistan. Iran, we would absolutely wipe out Iran in a very short order, but it would be horrifyingly violent and require a lot of death to do far more than Iraq or Afghanistan. It would be a prolonged thing. And they have a genuine Navy and they have a genuine Air Force. Also something that Iraq and Afghanistan, neither of them had, although I don't know where you would put the boats in Afghanistan, but you get the point. We'll get to that story in a second, because that's crucial. So he goes, this probably explains why 3 of Hegseth's aides have now been fired for supposed leaks. No, it doesn't. No, because all these assholes are saying that the word leak keeps coming up, and they keep reusing the word leak, like Trish Regan yesterday, like I pointed out. They keep using the word fucking leak instead of mishandling of classified information, which is the actual charge. They jump immediately to leak as if these fuckers were giving stuff to the press, as opposed to our enemies, their supporters, their financiers, which is way more fucking concerning. Okay. So you cannot jump immediately to we have the same problem this time we had last time, which is how they're trying to cover their ass. Hashtag Doge is heist. Okay. And the Times wrote that, we'll look at this actual article in a second. The Times wrote that Israel's plans for imminent attack on Iran's nuclear sites were waved off by Trump in favor of more talks after months of internal debate over the best way to tackle the issue. Whatever, the back and forth. This is apocryphal story. It's bullshit. The idea that Trump was the peacemaker and like, no, it could destroy them, but I'm, bring me a small lion. All right. Sorry. Does anybody even remotely get that one? Hold on. I think is it in here? Where?
Nice. Not thrilling, but nice.
Yeah. Treasure back. So Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, feared any attack on Iran could get out of hand. Susie Wiles felt the same thing. Pentagon, was supported by Susie Wiles, Hegseth, and J.D. Vance. Basically everybody in the fucking room. Except Mike Waltz, Captain Fuck Up. And the USN Command, which, by the way, I think is a misreading because a lot of the times especially the military heads in the Pentagon, their tendency is to go, we're always for taking action sooner rather than later, sir, but it's up to you. Are you guys up for this attack? Yes, I am, sir. So they all go, are you guys also up for waiting? Yes, we are, sir. We're prepared to go when you're prepared to go. That's how they talk. So anytime somebody brings up a war fight, they're immediately going to go, we're ready. Or our prep timetable is 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 18 days, 19 hours, whatever the fuck it is. That's how military guys talk about this stuff at that level, okay? So the guys around them, like fucking Waltz and these other dipshits who play like machismo pool in the, and they're like, yeah, I'm a tough guy, right? Because I'm standing next to you. You're a tough guy. We're both tough guys. That shit. Waltz is one of the guys who will immediately jump to starting shit. Everybody else is like, hang on a second, dum-dum. There are real world consequences here. And Trump, again, like, I don't know how he fucking can, because his whole thing is no new wars. I mean, it's over the minute he does it, but he's planning on doing it as far as you know. Brian Hughes told the Times that Trump's entire national security leadership team was on board with the Iran policy, which is whatever Trump fucking feels like. That's the hilarious part. President Trump has been clear Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and all options remain on the table. Okay, how many times have we heard that language before? And again, that's what's special about Trump. He's not a politician. He speaks like us, even though the statement is exactly what we've always heard from leaders in this situation, because that's all you can say. Now, the president has authorized direct and indirect discussions. Great, cool. So that's leadership for you. With Iran to make this point clear, but he's also made clear this cannot go on indefinitely, which is why he gave him a 2-month deadline, which I think is up next week. So, yeah. Colin Carroll, Chief of Staff of the Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Freeberg, was suspended a day after Caldwell and Darren Selnick, both senior Hegseth advisors, beg your pardon, advisors. I start reading too fast and I don't care about vowels. Were escorted from the building. Politico reported that the leaks investigated included military plans for the Panama Canal and Elon Musk's visit to the Pentagon to discuss China. So this is the point I'm trying to make, okay? This is what the actual report said. Politico said this. New York Times references as well. And this is really fucking clear because all the right-wing media keep saying leaks as if this is all about the press stuff, which is this military plans for the Panama Canal, which there really weren't any leaked to the press. There was some, like, we're sending ships down there, but guess what? You'd fucking see them. Like, Trump himself said, we're sending troops down there. There was no leakage in, so far as I know, that much ahead of what it was, or that it was a big fucking secret. What may have been leaked, if you're going to leak stuff about military plans in the Panama Canal, that means you leaked it to the fucking Chinese. That's the first thought I would have. Not to the news media an hour. I mean, what does Trump, I mean, would Trump fire people for saying something before he gets to say it, like jumping his punchline? Maybe. But since he digs in his heels on fucking everybody, I doubt it. This sounds like somebody being loose with that information on on Signal someplace else in another chat room that they now know, a Chinese official had access to or some shit. And then Elon Musk's visit to the Pentagon to discuss China. Now, that is not a leak to the media. That wasn't the leak about his plan. Trump allegedly flipped the fuck out. And again, maybe it's just about being caught, but he'd been telling everybody with Elon in the office, no, he will stop himself if he's got conflicts of interest, and will stop him, and I trust him to stop himself and all this. And then he finds out, after he said that a half a dozen times in the White House, that Elon Musk is going to the Pentagon to get briefed on our war plans against a potential shock and awe against China, or if they attack Taiwan, what our response will be. All the myriad of things that can happen, okay? Which is basically the only two ways it goes. So this piece of information, that means that the leaking and the mishandling, again, they fucking throw this word leak around. It starts to aggravate me. That it's really about mishandling of classified information, disseminating classified information to people who are not cleared to get it. And that would be this dumb motherfucker. This guy whose cars and batteries, most of them are made in China, outside of Shanghai, in his gigafactory, the biggest factory he has. With aluminum he gets almost exclusively from Russia. That's why it matters. And giving stuff about the U.S.'s response to China to Russia as leverage that they can use to get back in the good graces of China is valuable to the Kremlin. I have less of a concern about him, leaking this to the Chinese than I have him leaking this to the Russians so that the Russians can do Xi Jinping a favor. And then they owe Elon Musk. Does that make sense? Okay. Chat room, are you guys with me on this? And by the way, Aaron's good. We're sending love to her. We good? Yes? Okay, just checking. So you leak and mishandle yourself often? I don't think that's possible, quite frankly. Now, let's look at, let's see, click this guy. Let me open that. Because yeah, go away. So this is a new article this morning. Trump waved off Israeli strike after divisions emerged in his administration. No, he didn't. I'll tell you right now, the absurdity that somehow Trump is having truly deliberative conversations about this shit is gibberish, is nonsense, is hooey. It's horseshit. What Trump did was they came to him with news that Israel wants to do this. And Waltz is basically like, if you don't get on board, people are going to say you don't like Israel. And Trump more than likely was like, I said no new wars, and this will fuck with my current image. Therefore, tell Bibi to wait. I gave him 2 months. As soon as the 2 months are up, then we'll do it. But the idea that it was, you'll see. But the idea that it was a truly deliberative thing, and I will say this, I will say the idea, the way they phrase it rather, as waved off, is exactly the level of depth of thought. No, not right now. I got the Saudis coming this fucking weekend, right? I'm golfing with the dude who threw Jamal Khashoggi in a fucking wood chipper. I can't be thinking about this right now. I'm trying to win the seniors golf championship at my own club by not playing again. Israel, yeah, played 9 holes in an 18-hole championship and still managed to win. Israel developed plans for attacking Iran nuclear facilities that would have required U.S. assistance, but some administration officials had doubts. Okay, that's never not going to be true. And if it is, you don't have an administration, you have a cult. And the other ones, like Tulsi Gabbard, for example, I don't think she's worried about the blowback and the danger to national security if we attack Iran or Israel does it. Iran supplies military support to Russia. Tulsi Gabbard likes Russia. She's worried that if they get attacked, they won't have the gear to send to Russia. In my humble and correct opinion. Israel had planned to strike Iran nuclear sites as soon as next month, but was waved off by President Trump in recent weeks in favor of negotiating a deal with Iran to limit its nuclear program, according to the administration officials and others briefed on the discussion. So not surprising. And again, we had a fucking nuke deal. We had one. And he's like, it would have been expired by now. You would have extended it, stupid. If it's working, you continue. That was the whole point. That's why it had a sunset. Because you could check and make sure that they were meeting these points before you put the sanctions back on. The debate highlighted fault lines between the historically hawkish American cabinet officials and other aides, more skeptical that a military assault on Iran could destroy the country's nuclear ambitions and avoid a larger war. It resulted in a rough consensus for now against military action, with Iran signaling a willingness to negotiate. Israeli officials had recently developed plans to attack Iran nuclear sites in May. They were prepared to carry them out, and at times were optimistic the United States would sign off. The goal of the proposals, according to officials briefed on them, was to set back Iran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon by a year or more. By the way, that languaging was to set back Tehran's ability to develop a nuclear weapon by a year or more. That language is meant to appeal to Trump. If he can't get a deal immediately, we'll just hit him. We can do it anytime we want. We'll we hit them. They won't be able to do this for at least a year and a half. You won't have to worry about them through the midterms. They'll be fucked. That's the Israeli sales pitch on Iran. And they may be right, but they're wording it that way to appeal to Trump. For the record. That's why a year or more, because that's the kind of language you use to make Trump, who historically doesn't give a shit, about stuff. He just wants it off his plate and wants to delegate and blame. These are the two, that's the strategy he has. Okay. Almost all the plans would have required U.S. help, not to just defend Israel from Iranian retaliation, but also to ensure that an Israeli attack was successful, making it a central part in the attack itself. But largely intel, largely, bomber guidance and maybe some air support for their bombing runs, maybe, depending on the size of the aircraft, or literally having our bombers do the actual bombing while they lay cover, right? That would be the other strategy. And these things, these nuclear facilities are deep undercover. They are deep underground, and they will require more than MOABs. There's a theory, I will say, that occasionally when we speak of using the mother of all bombs, or the MOAB, secretly they're using a small tactical nuke. Not the kind that mushroom clouds out, but the kind that is based on a MOAB technology that would go further in and then, right? And that's why it's so effective. But the purpose isn't to irradiate the area. It's simply kind of like depleted uranium bullets for piercing power and the depth of the attack. Okay. And in this case, that would be the high level secret discussions that they're talking about, and maybe why they're reticent to do it, thinking that Trump's thinking maybe we can just drop a bunch of MOABs on them after the fact. Okay. So just that, in my opinion, knowing the tech as well as I do just from what's available just about anywhere. All right. That said, For now, Trump has chosen diplomacy over military action. In his first term, he tore up the nuclear Iran deal. But his second term, eager to avoid being sucked into another war in the Middle East, he's opened negotiations with Tehran, giving it a deadline of just a few months, to negotiate a deal over its nuclear program. Speaking to reporters on Thursday, he took issue with the idea that he had waved off Israel, but acknowledged that negotiating with the Iranians was his preferred course. He added that he was not in a rush to support military action against Iran, but reiterated he did not want Tehran to have a nuclear weapon. I think that Iran has a chance to have a great country and to live happily without death. Sorry, but if we have an everlasting life bomb, I think we owe it to Americans in the name of Jesus to drop it on our own country without death. That's my first option. If there's a second option, I think it would be very bad for Iran, and I think Iran is wanting to talk, which is basically just holding a gun to their children's head. Because I got to say, is it bad in quotes for you to strike their nuclear facilities? Yeah. Is that what he's talking about? No. He's threatening civilians. That's what he means. When he talks like that, he's like, it would be very bad. You know, it's the same thing he did with North Korea. It'd be very bad. The worst thing, you know, fire and fury, right? There's no fire and fury on a fucking military base in the middle of the desert that barely anybody is at. And, you know, people sign up for the military knowing they're putting their life on the line. And the Iranian, you know, Republican or whatever the guard has, they, I'm sure, feel the same way, right? Chat, you still with me? This is a chattier show, more chattier show than usual. A couple of people in the chat have gone after me to give more of my own opinion pieces, and I think they're right on some degree, as opposed to just reacting to videos. Although I do enjoy the springboard. So here's the other part. Okay, so in the middle of all this, the possible attack on Iran in the next few weeks, that would be massive in scale. And, I mean, in theory, again, you don't know how much bullshit these guys are floating around or how Trump kind of does tend to chicken out at the last second. It makes him look like a peacenik when in reality, it has a lot more to do with cowardice, right? And I mean, dude didn't even go to the return of our soldiers from Lithuania. Like, the idea that he actually gives any of this shit any kind of deep emotional thought is absurd. But the way that they are telling people under Hegseth to pound sand is very telling. Top Pentagon advisors placed on leave and leak investigation. And again, leaky leak. You can't leak a lie. Hashtag, you can't leak a lie. You can lie to the press, or you can give them information you're not supposed to. That's a leak. A leak is giving people information that is true that they're not supposed to have. So I don't want to hear any bullshit about fake news when it comes, and they still call it a leak. If they're calling it a leak, they are admitting that it's true. Politicians, you're on fucking notice. Right along with my 48-hour rule. From this day forward, you're not allowed to not know this. And I know a bunch of you watch the show. I know people on your staff show you clips. Don't ask me how I know that. I'm just saying you might want to change the admin password on your router that controls the cameras in your office. Anyways, that said, if you have 48 hours when you find out about something, whether it's Signal Gate or any of those things, you have 48 hours to get a briefing on it. Your staff can look it up, go to ChatGPT and go, what the fuck? And then it'll go, brrr, and you go, okay, here's a briefing document on it that you could peruse in 2 goddamn minutes. I don't want to hear you don't know about it. You can say, I didn't know about it till yesterday. Now, you might catch some shit for that, but you don't have to pretend to be stupid now. That's the problem I have. You can't stay stupid. You're not allowed. Not in this day and age. Sorry, it's too easy to look up. I do this all the time where we're watching a video and something comes up and we don't know the article. We don't know the bill that somebody's referencing because we got a lot of other shit in our lives and children and pets and shopping to do and groceries to worry about. Look, I used the word and I don't even feel like I'm in the 1800s. You know, so you have to look it up immediately. But from that point on, we know about it. We might not know everything about it, but we sure can learn a lot fast. It's 20 fucking 25. All right. So 48 hours. If you're in the intelligence community, you have 4. You have 4 fucking hours, especially if you're going to speak to Congress. You have 2 hours before and 2 hours after. Here's what happens. You're being called in to talk to the committee and you know a story is big, Signalgate. 2 hours before, your staff has 120 minutes to brief you on that particular story with everything that's relevant to what you need to talk about. Good? Two fucking hours. They can do it over lunch. You're going to eat something before you go to the committee hearing, and you're going to take a piss. They can stand next to you at the fucking urinal and read the briefing to you. They can email it to you, and you can have your phone read the document while you have headphones in while you're on the shitter. There's too many options. 2 hours before. Then, if during the meeting, the committee hearing, the press conference, somebody goes, hey, what about this? And while you know everything up to this point, but you don't know what they're talking about, you have 2 hours to give another statement after it's over. If you're in the intelligence community, 4 hours, that's it. 2 before, 2 after. Or you should know everything in 4 hours before anything happens. I'm being nice. Because if I can figure it out in that amount of time, so can you. And I don't have a staff of fucking 16 people paid for by the taxpayer. Asshole. Other than that, I have no opinion. Hashtag you can't leak a lie. Sign up for my Substack. I need to write a whole Substack on you can't leak a lie. By the way, the stroke of the pen fallacy is becoming a classic. I'm very proud of it. I will eventually, when I have some free time, write the hoverboard fallacy as well, because I think that's very important, as far as pop culture. But insofar as politics, which is obviously the bent right now until we broom this motherfucker, I think it's important that I try to stay somewhat focused. Maybe I need a break once in a while. I'll do it then. Anyways, here we go. So, total of 3 people, by the way, have been pitched out of this. 2 aides to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth were escorted from the Pentagon Tuesday. Now, the original story was this asshole, Dan Caldwell, this fucker. This guy was escorted from the building yesterday. Turns out his deputy was also escorted. And a third official followed on Wednesday as part of an investigation into unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. Now, that is the key. This is what they call it. And this is important for all the media out there. Indie and, lamestream and traditional and heritage media, whatever the fuck you want to call it. All of you fuckers, listen to me. You're using the word leak, which assumes like 2/3 of the crime, the taking of the information from a place it is not supposed to be removed, either by your head and telling it someone or on a piece of paper. The dissemination of it to a third party and the sort of quality and characteristics of that third party. These are the 3 elements of the unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. When you say it's a leak, it automatically assumes the press in the other 2 parts, that you are taking it to a member of the press, and that member of the press is therefore presenting it for either undermining the administration and its choices or artificially supporting them, giving them a heads up because the story's going to suck. So you guys should know about it ahead of time so you can, maybe help us work on our talking points, Sean Hannity, right? That's the assumption. None of that can be assumed from that. And if anything, from Signalgate, it wasn't the point that Jeffrey Goldberg from The Atlantic was in that. It's that an unauthorized person who had not taken the oath of office to protect these things and would not been briefed on how to deal with top secret information was in the chat. The fact that he was a journalist is ancillary to the fact that an undisclosed person, somebody who was not supposed to be there, was accidentally / on purpose added to the chat. The fact that he's a journalist has nothing. If he was a fucking plumber, it'd still be a problem because he could say it to a dude at the bar and like, I got on this fucking signal chat. I don't know what the fuck was going on over here. And then he's sitting next to Boston Brian and he says it to Boston Brian. Boston Brian gets on his show and goes, they're gonna fucking attack Iran, right? Right, which I believe he would do. Bless his heart. I would hope, right? That's so it doesn't matter that he's a fucking journalist. That's, they want to make it about being a journalist because they built up this distrust, this fuck the media bullshit, this fake news storyline. They've built that up so long that they've got a guaranteed boogeyman that the right can kind of go, oh, no, they're leaking to the press. They're undermining him. This is what happened last time. That's what Trish Regan was saying. That's what Glenn Beck was saying. That's what fucking O'Reilly was trying to spackle shut. Same shit. Penny Johnson. They're all trying to run, just walk around wiping Hegseth's ass when, using this myth that it went to the press. When the fact that Goldberg was in the chat and was press is immaterial to the fact that that material was leaked to someone not authorized to have it, period. And if this was Hillary Clinton, if it was fucking Bill Clinton, if it was fucking Hunter Biden or Shemp Biden or, Frank Biden, they would be flipping the fuck out. But because it's Hegseth, everybody in right-wing media spheres is running around wiping Hegseth's ass, trying to make it look like it's the press weaseled their way in. The deep state snuck him in through a back door. When in reality, Waltz is a fuck-up. And Trump hires fuck-ups because he runs a company of fuck-ups, and now he's running an administration of fuck-ups because he's a fuck-up. Okay. And so when you see this unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information, whenever you hear anybody refer to it as a leak, they are assuming it is going to the press. Now, if they know that it's going to the press, then they should say so. This person was busted for talking to me, and now that they're being busted, I can out them as a source. But unless they know that that person was a source for someone, they don't know it was a leak. That stuff. Also, Dan Caldwell and Darren Selnick, who were identified as part of the continuing leak investigation, which, by the way, was not a leak investigation in terms of Signal. Signal was not about a leak in terms of active leaking. Signal was about the accidental adding of somebody, and Hegseth himself fucked everybody. Nobody was committing a crime until Hegseth dropped battle plans into the fucking Signal chat. Nobody. It was shitty, maybe stupid, maybe too open, maybe it gave our, Russia an advantage to know what Vance was hearing from the other people in the cabinet that weren't as, hell-bent on supporting Russia as he is or tells he is. But nothing was untoward in that except a bunch of shitheels yapping at each other. Until Hegseth posted real-time attack plans before they happened. Hours before our soldiers would be over anti-aircraft weapons, he was posting in an unsecure Signal group where they would be and when. So the idea that these guys had anything to do with Hegseth's fuck-up is absurd, which means to me that there's more to it, that there's a bunch of shit going out. And a lot of this has to do with Elon Musk and China and them arranging it. Because all these motherfuckers couldn't be more MAGA. They're not deep stating Hegseth and trying to undermine shit. If anything, they wanted to go further. And, maybe maybe they're calling Trump's bluff. That would be the only excuse why they would fuck up this bad on purpose, is that they're trying to push things because they know they'll trigger it, kind of helter-skelter as a political theory. They were placed on administrative leave on Tuesday. On Wednesday, Colin Carroll, the chief of staff of Deputy Defense Secretary Stephen Feinberg, was removed from the Pentagon immediately after an interview with investigators in his office. Like, they walked these fuckers out yesterday. They were he's like, "Hey, can you come into my office for a second?" They sat down, they talked to him, and then they were never allowed to go back to their desk. That isn't, "You've been talking to the Atlantic behind our backs." That's one of my buddies at the Heritage Foundation told me that you guys sent him that like a fucking meme that showed when our attack plans are happening on his fucking BlackBerry. Asshole. And he turned you in. This just reeks of that. Okay. And this all had to do with like Houthi strikes. Since arriving at the Pentagon, Hegseth, Caldwell has accompanied the defense secretary on some of his meetings with major foreign leaders. So he's sat in. Hey, look, maybe he's in trouble for talking to Hegseth's wife because she was in some of these fucking meetings too. In a signal text chain first disclosed by The Atlantic last month, Caldwell was listed as Hegseth's representative to the White House as it prepared to launch strikes in Yemen. But if you'll remember, and this is, you can tell how people just read this shit sideways, that when they read that as its representative in the chat, if you're just a breezer of the news, you might get the feeling that he's the one who posted the shit in there, and Hegseth was just in the chat, and it's his boss, and he just put that stuff in there. Hegseth posted the illegal shit, not this guy. He was just in there. Now, if he cut and pasted what was in his fucking signal and texted his fucking girlfriend or boyfriend or both, what was going to happen, that would be yet another thing where they're, was the official unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information. Notice how, by the way, they're charging them with unauthorized disclosure of sensitive information to try and take some of the heat off of Hegseth, when we all fucking know that attack plans, before they are put into place in the near future, are top secret. I don't know what kind of an asshole goes, well, sometimes, fuck you. You're going to get our people killed, dipshit. So, Selnick was punted. Caldwell was punted. And again, Caldwell was part of this Concerned Veterans for America. He was on Fox News all the time. Hegseth used to interview him all the time. And Caldwell's one of these guys, like I said, a wolf in sheep's clothing. He's one of these guys who's like, he's an isolationist in theory, and a like a neocon peacenik is the idea. Is that like America? It's not that I don't like killing people and throwing around derogatory terms for people from the Middle East. That's not a problem. The problem I have is that it's expensive, and why do we care? We should just let those assholes kill each other. That's his theory on a bunch of these things. But it always seems to benefit Russia and China. Just for the record. Okay. He worked for Defense Priorities, a think tank that pushed for more restrained U.S. foreign policy, and was deeply skeptical of American engagement in the Middle East and support to Ukraine, namely the areas where the Wagner Group was showing up and Russia had attack plans. So in recent weeks, they've been, Joe Casper, who was Hegseth's chief of staff, ordered the investigation. All these guys are punted because of this. I don't think they're all linked to the same thing, but we will find out as shit goes on. Now, on the other hand, yes. So a piece of good news. And by the way, Chad, you still with me? You having a good time? You all right? What's going on? Yeah, I'm up. I'm on early today because this is kind of a different slice of show. I have to end at 2 my time, and then I'll be back on at 4 at our regular time on Thursday. But I'm making up for this. Is more like a background show, if it makes sense, because there's a bunch of these things that are happening, and we got to be kind of clear on what's occurring. And I wanted to throw my opinion on the pyre, as it were. So there's some obviously concerning stuff with national security and these guys being punted, and they deserve to go. I have no doubt. Fuck them. Anybody who Hegseth is like, that's my man, is probably a danger to national security and a complete fucking moron, just like he is. But there's one guy in particular who got bounced that I think we can all just enjoy in the abstract. and that is John Oliot. You guys know who John Oliot is? John Oliot was a Pentagon spokesperson for the first few weeks of the administration. He's in there like a few weeks, and then he did a bunch of gnarly shit, which sounds like it's right in line with what Trump and all of his pals, and especially Hegseth, want to do. And but he went a little further than some folks. He's the guy who, in this attempt to take DEI out of everywhere, removed the Jackie Robinson page from Arlington. Yeah, that's this guy. Who, by the way, I know what some of you are thinking. Wow, Perry Farrell cleans up nice. But like, the dude looks like a pedophile defendant on Law and Order. Dun, dun. Just creepy asshole. You could just kind of, he just has that kind of vibe. He signed on to be the top Pentagon spokesperson. He told Hegseth when he came on, I don't want to be number 2 to anybody in the media department at the Pentagon. Like, when you bring me on, I'm going to be in charge, or I don't want the fucking job. He elbowed his way to the front of the line, and Hegseth bent over and took it up the poop chute, and agreed with this. One of the most zealous supporters of Trump's administration's purge of DEI-related content from government website. He was demoted after the purge of a website, a webpage about legendary baseball star Jackie Robinson, the first black player in Major League Baseball. Oliot's resignation comes at a turbulent time in the Pentagon, blah, 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 Signalgate, yada, yada. Caldwell, Colin Carroll, Stephen Farmer's placed on leave Wednesday. They're going through a bunch of these like we just did. One of the leaks suggested that Elon Musk would be briefed on top secret plans about potential war with China, a briefing that was personally halted by Trump himself, who reportedly said, what the fuck is Elon doing there? Make sure he doesn't go. So it does not sound like Trump was upset that that information got out, because it was the only way he found out was through the press. Somebody in the press asked him about it, and that's how he ended up pushing back. Oliot's dedication, fuck you, Daily Beast, fixation on the anti-DEI mission, not dedication to, fixation on, please. Landed him in hot water after a purge of the webpage about Jackie Robinson. Oliot, who referred to diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives as a form of woke cultural Marxism that divides the force, erodes unit cohesion, and interferes with the service's core warfighting mission, which is a direct quote that Hegseth memorized. All the shit you hear Hegseth prattle off about warfighters and the warfighter ethos and all that shit, this fucker wrote it. Or used fucking Grok to write it. But it came from him. Was moved more behind the scenes. The Pentagon, following a furious outcry over the removal of the Jackie Robinson page, he was replaced as spokesman by combat veteran and former congressional candidate Sean Parnell. There's Jackie. After struggling to find, and this is the fun part, after struggling to find a new permanent role following the demotion later, so he wandered around the halls looking for a job to do for a few weeks, Oliot announced his departure from the Defense Department. I made clear, this is his quote to Politico, I made clear to Secretary Hegseth before the inauguration that I was not interested in being number 2 to anyone in public affairs. Sorry, bro, I guess you shouldn't have fucked up and been all racist that quickly. So I informed him today that I will be leaving at the end of the week. And I hate him, and I hate their ass faces. During his tenure as acting press secretary, he was responsible for the controversial revamp of the Pentagon's press pool. He took the New York Times, NPR, Politico, and all them out, and gave Breitbart and One American News Network a sign. The irony is that Breitbart and One American News weren't on board with the whole Jackie Robinson purge the way he thought, I guess. Ironically. It's nice to know you can overstep, right? That even Breitbart and One American News kind of have a line, even if it's just presentational, whether they actually believe it or not. They know that that's a line that the public will push back on, so they don't dare step over it. That's progress. He was part of the 2016 thing, blah, blah, Yeah. So, anyways, this fucker got booted. That's good news overall. So, who fucking rah? Um, Now, let's see if I can pull this guy out. Yeah, we had one more thing. Da-da-da. Oh, okay. The other thing is that get out of here. There's always so many. There's so many ads on television these days, on especially on news websites. I don't like it. I click into a news website, and the pop-ups, the pop-ups, the pop-ups. I lose interest. I think that's the deep state working. I think that's the cabal. I think that's what they're trying to do. You understand? That's what they're trying to do. They try to make us stay ignorant by making us not interested. We don't want that thing. We don't want to. Like I can't take all the ads at Timu and the shoes and what some starlet who was attractive in the 90s looks like now. I can't take it anymore. And I've lost interest in knowing this whole Pentagon thing. I'm not interested. Um, yeah, Alabama or South Africa. It's a mix. It is 250K. I don't know. I was kind of making him up as I went along. He was just my effete, affected, annoyed uh reader. I don't know. Is that right? I don't understand. Um, so we've been let me bring up, hold on. There we go. Oh, not good. There we go. Yes. Okay, there we go. And we'll slide this up here. Now, it has not been a particularly good week, month, 6 months for Tesla. It's at 241. It's not the bottom of where it's been, but it's not doing too good. And it's got nowhere to go but down, as we've looked at. Again, it's less about their stock price and more about the worth of the company, the actual earnings underneath it all, that matter. And they suck. Tesla is floating as a meme stock right now. And there's a bunch of maggots out there and maggoty investors who are trying to suck up to Musk and Trump by saying, I've got a shit ton of Tesla stock, or quite frankly, Saudis, fucking Russian oligarchs, whoever's just buying up a bunch of it to keep it afloat with money that they've got through the Caymans and all kinds of ideas, mixed with the meme fighters out there who are assuming that there'll be some dipshit dumber than them that will eventually buy it because it's like owning a Beanie Baby, right? It's a Beanie Baby stock. It doesn't have any intrinsic worth. So, and their sales are shit, and yeah. Anyways, it's seeking bottom, and it will keep going down because there's nothing real supporting it. Just like Trump's, finance, like his finance vehicle, his fucking meme coin, and Trump Media and Technology Group. There's no fucking bottom in these things. But why do I bring this up besides the fact that it's fun to chuckle at the shitty end of Elon Musk's torrid story as an American faux genius? Well, he's got something that he hasn't had in a while. After Bezos's launch of a bunch of ladies into space in a dildo, quite frankly, which I'm all for, by the way. Like anybody who's like, these rich bitches, like, shut the fuck up. It like anybody who's doing stuff, if a rocket goes up in the sky and it doesn't land on anybody, I'm for it. I kind of give a shit. The only time I'm against it is when Elon Musk is using it as a way to weasel his way into hashtag Doge's heist. You get my point. But one of the other areas where he's been like, he did his all hands on deck gathering at Tesla to reassure everyone that their stock would be worth something in a couple of years, which it will not, especially if he's successful, which is the weirdest thing. If Tesla fails at its mission to eventually go away from cars into robots and autonomous driving vehicles, which you wouldn't really call a car, it's like a little train, but with one car, or Neuralink or XAI. If he fails on his face. If he succeeds, he puts himself out of business because Nobody's going to pay $80,000 for a car that costs $6,000 to produce, especially if everybody else can do that too by leasing robots from other places. And they have these giant automotive vending machines near cities, and people can bring their car in and have it ground up and turn into another one in about 20 years. So he's going to put himself out of business, or he's going to fail on his own. It's those two trains leaving the stations, kids. They cannot avoid contact at one point. So there are two other companies, and maybe people don't know this, but there are two other companies vying for the kind of Neuralink space. Brain implants to help paralyzed people regain function and communicate, at least the ability to communicate at first, and then function of their limbs after that point, where they're doing like neurological bridges. So let's say your nerves work fine down to this part of your spinal column. Is there a way we can put like a jumper cable between that, or start building cell structures where the nerves can regrow on top of it over time, because they have that contact, they're getting the feedback, which is what they learned from Christopher Reeves, bless his fucking glorious heart, that if they'd have just done that treatment on him that they did late in his life, it very well could have, if he couldn't have walked again, he would have been able to move his upper body and do a lot of other things, breathe on his own and all that kind of shit, which would have been fantastic. But they started too late. And you could argue that it contributed to his demise, but it was his dedication to it that kept it alive. And part of the technology and the studies that came from him were leading to things like Neuralink and these other, this company called Precision Neuroscience, and no shock, Bezos and Bill Gates also have their own companies for this, because once it's done, it's not a mystery how it works. It's just a matter of how well you can produce and reproduce results, and then turn it into a functional product that works across multiple people. Because that's the other thing. Humans are very alike and very not alike. So Precision Neuroscience on Thursday announced that a core component of its brain implant system has been approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration under Donald Trump. That's got to hurt, Elon. A major win for the four-year-old company. Precision is building a brain-computer interface, or BCI, which is a system that decodes the neural signals and translates them into commands for external technologies. The company's BCI will initially be used to help patients with severe paralysis restore functions such as speech and movement, according to its website. Only part of Precision's system was approved by the FDA on Thursday, because they have to do that part to implant it, and then it starts building on top of that. But that's the essential piece. But it marks the first full regulatory clearance granted to a company developing a wireless BCI, Precision said in a release. And this is the key. That's huge. Other prominent startups such as Neuralink, Synchron, which is backed by Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, you still remain wired to the system. You carry that pack. Now, again, if eventually people who have, get their spine destroyed and can put a little like coupler on their spine, like some cyborg futuristic thing, and that's what you have because you were injured, nobody's going to give a shit. You have to actually wear a device that has a changeable battery in it or some shit. But if you could do it wirelessly, it'd be kind of magical, especially if you could put it under the skin and people could charge the device itself, say by just sleeping, leaning up against a charging device if they needed to even do that. Or if you eventually get the power draw down so low that it actually can just go off the energy of the human body heat or what have you. So you just have to exercise to charge the storage of it, that kind of shit. I mean, that's the way that this shit is going. I'm just telling you. This is a foundational moment for Precision, Dr. Benjamin Rappaport, Precision's co-founder and chief science officer, said in a statement. Rappaport also helped co-found Musk's Neuralink in 2017 before departing the following year. Oh, feels so good. All right. The piece of Precision system that the FDA approved is called the Layer 7 Cortical Interface. The microelectrode array is thinner than a human hair and resembles a piece of yellow Scotch tape. Each array is made up of 1,024 electrodes that can record, monitor, and stimulate electrical activity on the brain surface. When it's placed on the brain, Precision says it can conform to the surface without damaging any tissue. So basically, it's like the idea is this is pretty cool. This thing heat sinks to the brain surface. So it, instead of staying flat like that, like a ribbon, it melts basically slightly. It warms and curls slightly. If you've ever had like those um like those joke bad breath testers, and you breathe on it and it curls up from the heat of your breath, and it's a joke. I don't know if you've ever seen those; they're fun. It's basically close to the same principle. I mean, it's a much higher quality, I would imagine. Maybe it's not. Maybe they're just like, hey, remember those bad breath tester jokes that you could get in novelty stores or in the back of a comic book? Yeah. Well, if there's always heat on it because it's in your head, it'll just stay. It'll just compact itself to the space necessary. Oh shit! Right. Okay. So the FDA authorized layer 7 to be implanted in patients for up to 30 days, and Precision will be able to market the technology for use in clinical settings. This means surgeons will be able to use the array during procedures to map brain signals, for instance. It is not Precision's end goal for the technology, but it will help the company generate revenue in the near term. Precision has temporarily implanted the layer 7 in 37 patients so far, and CNBC observed one case at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York last April. Until this point, the implementations had taken place for short periods, often a matter of minutes or hours, on patients who were already undergoing brain surgery for a medical reason. Now, because the FDA clearance, company will be able to collect data for much longer periods of time, see if the flow back and forth works the way they think it does, and all that kind of stuff. Awesome. And while being awesome and getting us closer to people who have been paralyzed or suffering from debilitating brain damage, that they can maybe once again regain thought, speech, function. I mean, if technology is for anything, this is what it's for. And the fact that this is happening and it will annoy the shit out of Elon Musk, all the better. Just saying. I just think that's fantastic. So I thought I'd add that as a piece of fun news, that while his stock is going down, other companies are are doing an end run around it. Um, and then let's see. Let's see. Let's see if you guys have any questions. Oh my God, I just noticed how's oh yeah. It's the Motang shirt. I mean, come on. And for those of you, so maybe there's some people who are new to the show and don't know what that's from. It's from this.
Michigan gave us Motang, gave us Motown, gave us the Mustang.
So yeah, that's why we have Motang Mondays around here.
Michigan gave us Motang.
So I made this. I took it turned this upside down and made it an M. And yeah, I at one point was thinking about, with like all these AI audio things, making a Motang like rap album, the Unknown Motang Clan rap album. Yeah, that's actually what Trump said. Trump said that at a campaign stop in Michigan in 2020.
Michigan gave us Motang.
Excuse me. I still have the leftover tickle. I'm fine. Like, but that, you know how like when you've had a cough before and it's ending, it's tapering off, and it's got that little like every so often, and you're like, God damn it. And if you don't talk very much, it doesn't really happen. But since I talk all the time, obviously it's a problem. So, yeah. Originally, a Motang is vodka and tang. Oh, you got it now, Nikini? Okay. Yeah, he literally, that's an actual quote for those that are new.
Michigan gave us Motang. Michigan gave us Motang. Gave us Motown, gave us the Mustang.
This is good. It's still one of the at one point I just want to get him on. Didn't you mean Pootie Tang? Like, all right. This is yeah. So let me. By the way, now do I have time? Yeah. So Trump sat down with Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. No relation to the dude on Law and Order SVU. I don't think. Actually, he's on one of the other crime, like Law and Order, Deep State. What do they have? There's so many. Has it like organized crime? Is that it? Yeah, organized crime. I think he's on there. And no relation that I know of. Maybe he is. Like every time I turn around, I'm like, good for you, fellow actor. And then you're like, oh yeah, his aunt's the fucking king of the Netherlands, like or queen of the Netherlands. Oh fuck me. I was all like, man, good on Nicolas Cage for just making it, being weird and doing it on his own. Nicolas Cage is Nicolas Coppola. He's Francis Ford Coppola's nephew. Son of a bitch, right? Like, yeah. That was the 90s. That was what the 90s were like for me as an actor. Like every time I liked somebody, Christopher Maloney, thank you, yes. Every time I found out somebody, like I'd like somebody, I'm like, all right, let's wonder what their story is. And then you'd find out like, oh yeah, Steven Spielberg, that's his cousin, and he went to school and he was in class with the entire cast of Friends, so they all they used to hang out together. I'm like, fuck, I'm never gonna, son of a bitch. And yet, you're welcome. The Virginia Scholar House should write it. Write what? Speaking of organized crime, or should I say disorganized crime, here's Trump falling asleep while having to listen to a woman. Maloney is borrowing. Remember how I was saying to everybody, like the Macron handshake, where you're like, yeah, buddy, yeah, it's awesome. You're making America great again. This guy's the boss. He's the deal maker of the century. I've never seen anything like it. And he just told us we could have all the weapons we want. Awesome. And he can't walk it back. He can't go, I did not, because he looks like he was had. He gets shamed. So he's the easiest fucking mark in the world. So Maloney has done this several times, Macron has done this several times. He's done the Macron handshake, and Zelensky did it in part too as well. So there are weapons that are still going to Ukraine right now because Zelensky brought up that Trump said they would continue, and he couldn't say no. Even though that's one of the reasons Vance got mad at that meeting, and why he tried to stop it, and why he tried to get him back on Zelensky's side so that so that Trump would get mad at him again, so he would rescind it. He would go, well, on second thought, that would give him an out to call those weapons back. But he couldn't, because he's a fucking dolt and he's such a weakling, and he didn't catch the clue. So Maloney says in this he wants to make the West great again, which I agree, as in democracy. Huh? All the values of the Enlightenment, the individual value of a person and the ability of people to petition their government and to actually choose their leadership, Western values that actually fucking mean something. Making the West great again undermines this asshole's bullshit storyline entirely, even if it sounds good to the right-wing media.
To pay an official visit to Rome in the near future and consider the possibility in that occasion to meet also with Europe. The goal for me is to make the West great again. Okay, and I think we can do it together.
We can.
And
Trump like, we can. I don't know what that means. The West, what you mean, California?
We will keep on work on that. I'm going to close. I want to say only, I'm proud of sitting here as Prime Minister of an Italy that today has a very good situation despite the difficulties. A stable country, reliable country.
A bigger economy than Russia.
And more jobs in the last 2 years and a half.
Great.
Inflation is going down, so you forgive me if I promote a bit my country,
yeah,
but you're a businessman and you understand me. So migration flows going down 60%. So we are trying to do our best, but I think we can do it even better together. Also on Ukraine, I will close. Together we've been defending the freedom of Ukraine. Together we can build a just and lasting peace. We support your efforts, Donald.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think we're doing well in that effort, but we want to get
No, you're not.
done, and we'll see if we can. We want to save On average, think of it, every week 2,500 people are being killed, mostly soldiers, Russian, Ukrainian soldiers.
Yeah, that's how most of the time in war, soldiers are the ones that die the most often. As terrible as that is, it's preferable to, I guess, more civilian deaths. I don't know why that would be better, but also it's way higher than that. The Russians are losing more than like 3 times, 5 times that every week on their own. Maybe just, you know what, in fairness, maybe I'm counting like the North Koreans and the Chinese that are fighting along with them, or the Chechens, and Trump doesn't count them as people. Maybe that's it. Maybe only the white Russians and the, you know, which, you know, I guess specifically, if we say white Russians, we have to. Come on! Sorry. No, okay. Is that right?
Hey,
yeah.
Careful, man. There's a beverage here, huh?
Yeah. So he's worried about white Russians more than anything else.
And if we can save those lives, that would be a very good thing. And so we'll see what we can do.
For what? For what? So they can fight again? Again, this weird, like, abstract, like, okay, look, my concern is all the Germans that are dying in this battle. You know, I just want to stop it, okay? I just want to stop the fighting between, you know, and look, there's a lot of Polish soldiers dying, and there's a lot of Polish citizens dying, and there's a lot of Germans dying, and it's just a shame. So we should just, if people would just stop backing Poland or coming to its rescue, all these Germans wouldn't have to die unnecessarily. That's what this fucking sounds like. And I don't know that anybody around him is mentioning that he sounds like Chamberlain with oxygen deprivation.
I think we're getting close, but we'll let you know very soon. And you've been very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions?
No, she hasn't. She supports the talks. They're not involved. The Italians aren't sitting in on it. You weirdo. You don't even know.
Mr. President, how much longer does Vladimir Putin have to respond to your ceasefire proposal before you put secondary tariffs or sanctions on Russia?
We'll see what that will be.
I'd love to tell you, but he might jerk my leash and it makes my nunt hurt. I'm sorry. Also, by the way, I forgot where we could, it was this. I feel like, yeah, sorry. I should put that. I didn't do that beforehand. I apologize. If you need to maybe find a bag or something, put it next to the couch when you're watching. Eesh. Okay, here we go.
Be hearing from them this week, very shortly.
This week, very shortly. I'm waiting for him to call me back. I've been sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm like, oh my God, Mom, get off the phone. Vlad's calling back. His fucking feet crossed behind him.
And we'll see, but we want it to stop. We want the death and the killing to stop.
Did you want the war to stop, though? What do you want? Right? Did you want the invasion to stop? How about that? How about the war to be over? How about the war to end? If you just want the killing to stop, basically, you're just, what you mean is the Russians are getting their ass handed to them, and you want to give them time to reload.
Mr. President, on Jerome Powell, you said that the termination of Jerome Powell cannot come fast enough. He says he won't leave, even if you ask him to.
Oh, he'll leave. If I ask him to, he'll be out of there. But
do you believe
no, he won't.
I don't think he's doing the job. He's too late, always too late, a little slow, and I'm not happy with him. I let him know it, and if I want him out, he'll be out of there real fast, believe me.
So you don't want him out? I guess. He's too late and he's too slow and you don't like what he's doing, but he should stay. Because, oh man, if I told him, he'd be gone. This fucking flaccid machismo.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Question.
Are you trying to remove him, Mr. President?
Yeah, question?
Mr. President, yesterday Judge Boasberg, in a case against your administration, said the Constitution does not tolerate willful disobedience of judicial orders. Do you
Come in.
agree with that statement?
Well, you're going to have to speak to the lawyers. We have great lawyers. I can tell you this, we're doing a fantastic job of getting criminals out of this country who Biden allowed into the country.
No. No. That the guy we're even talking about predates Biden's presidency, had a job and a wife and kids, with, if anything, had escaped gang violence in the United States, was living a peaceful life, and has and again, an American wife with American children. So at some point that used to fucking mean something. This asshole has 2 Eastern European exes, and children from them. Are they getting bounced because of how they got in the country?
Hundreds of thousands of criminals, murderers and drug dealers.
Yeah, and he isn't one. What's your fucking point? And if there's if Biden let in millions upon 25 million people, and there's thousands of these murderers and stuff, shouldn't take that long for you to get them all the fuck out, and then you can, I guess, leave the peaceful ones alone who aren't here in the first place because the number was never that big, because it's about encounters, not actual people.
And I was elected because of the fact, I would say.
No, not the fact. The story. And a bunch of uncommitted Dems and Genocide Joe bullshitters who secretly want the Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank to be wiped out so that they can, I don't know, trigger Armageddon or some sort of horrible retaliation so that Israel can be wiped off the map. And they figure that's, you know, if you can't make an omelet without breaking 2.4 million eggs.
That was the number one factor for a lot of reasons, the economy, a lot of things. But one of the primary reasons I was elected is because I said, I'm going to get the criminals that he allowed to come into our country so stupidly through open borders.
And how many people have they sent out? Seriously, how many people are on these fucking planes? And you still managed to scoop up people who hadn't been convicted of a crime? Yeah, you ran on getting the criminals out. And the idea, not only that you were going to get the criminals out, but that there were fucking millions of them. Insane people. Crazy, violent criminals by the hundreds of thousands. 25 million. Illegal immigrants. That's what he said were in the country that Biden let in, on top of the 10 that were allegedly here. So 35 million violent criminals, and this motherfucker has managed 3 flights of 175 fucking people. And most of those came straight out of jails. So where are they? In the fucking woods? Did they all go to Montana? Are they all hiding out in Michigan like a fucking militia group? Where, I mean, here's the thing. If you can't find, I don't know, 100,000 of them, when you say there's 25 million, I'm calling bullshit. That a lot of what we're dealing with, quite frankly, is just economic migration, and at worst, people who are in the drug trade who need to go to jail and then be deported. But they're nowhere near the number you're talking about. And the vast majority of them, this motherfucker hired undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants at Mar-a-Lago and Doral and everywhere he possibly could. Trump Tower. Get the fuck out of here.
I'm going to get them out. And I got a lot of.
Notice we haven't heard from fucking Homan. Like, he's just going around state to state giving these little speeches. But remember, like it took fucking Dr. Phil to catch one dude who was in a house, and they managed to arrest the guy because he was like, he had an ankle monitor or something, and he was awaiting trial and deportation because of the backup on it. One fucking guy in Chicago. Sorry. Let me get this straight. You went to Chicago and you managed in a city that big to find one guy? Where is his asshole partner?
It's record-setting numbers of votes, as you know. We won everything. The popular vote, all 7 swing states, we won everything. And that's what the public wanted. That's what I'm doing. But you have.
No, you're not. That's the thing. Because maggots, do we have any maggots in the chat today? I mean, I feel like we should. Anybody? Usually it's on Facebook. Because here's my question to the maggots in the chat room. Weren't you promised like roundups of hundreds of thousands of people? How many people did you actually fucking believe were in the country? Because he said $25 million or million people, right? 25 million people. Which again, 15 million more than were here. If you don't add them together, or if you do add them together, if you stack them, it's 35 million. There's allegedly, according to him, 35 million murderers, rapists, drug dealers, violent felons, just in a country of 340 million people in 50 states. We're talking about only a few cities that are densely populated enough where somebody like that could go unnoticed for, an insane knife murderer for a short period of time, right? You're talking major cities. And that would mean that the cops in those major cities are looking the other way as their citizenry got murdered, just not even looking for who it is. And that it would go on and on and on and on. So weren't you promised that, A, those people were all here, they're all violent, they're all from asylums and all that shit, and that they were going to just have buses of fucking people every week, like on day one? How many people have they flown out of the country, even to El Salvador, or put in Guantanamo, or repatriated? How many? They've done a bunch of deportations back into Mexico, but that happens the minute people crossed in. That's dwindled because it's no longer happening at the border. So their deportation numbers are in the fucking shitter because they were automatically counting people that they were like, a guy walks in, they just go, fuck you, and push it back out. Check. That's a deportation. They were counting those. So they had a huge deportation number. Oh my God. But when they lined the fucking border with soldiers and stopped everybody coming through, suddenly, what, did all the violent criminal aliens in the country that we were promised, did they just fucking evaporate? They must have all self-deported out of fear. Right? Where the fuck are they? Where are the giant fucking busloads of people? Where was the roundup in fucking Colorado? Right? Where are they? Because and I guess the other question is, my follow-up would be, how long will you wait before you start noticing that number was always bullshit and it was used to leverage you into voting for him so that he could gut Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid under the table and cut off aid to largely red and rural states because he considers you white trash and you weigh down the gene pool. And we've been spending way too much money and resources keeping your dumb ass alive, according to him, and Elon Musk, and all these, Darwinist, Ayn Randian, genetics fixated shitheels that he surrounded himself with. That you got to go. And the best way to get you to vote for your own demise was to scare you about these fucking, herds. Herds, like they were fucking the buffalo in the Old West, roaming tens of thousands of murderous, insane people dumped into our country on a fucking water slide. Just zoop, 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 zoop. Where the fuck are they? And I don't want you going by fucking Home Depot and pointing at guys in the parking lot who are just looking for work. Look at all these military-aged men. Yeah, they're also roofing and plumbing-aged men. They're also gardening-aged men. They're also, like, janitorial service-aged men. Good God. And you bought it. You fucking saps, you bought it. And so when he cuts off aid to your schools, and when he cuts off aid to your water treatment plants, and when he starts opening up like new coal plants with no EPA protections upriver from your fucking grandkids, and there's a direct linkage Erin Brockovich, you know, in her fucking 70s will come knocking at your door going, hey, I noticed that 3 of your kids have birth defects. Do you have any idea what's up the river? All right, will you wake up then? Will you wake up then and go, maybe I was too hyper fixated on the trans shit and it wasn't that big a threat in the first place. And we could have had a serious conversation about it, but demonization worked better and it freaked me the fuck out. And it was like a fucking hook in my nose that just dragged me straight to the voting booth so that I could vote for my own fucking demise. Because I got to tell you, every time he brings this up, I don't know why people around him or why a reporter doesn't follow up with, there really haven't been that many deportations. The numbers aren't that big. There was a big jump at the beginning because you used emergency powers to reject people who were at the border in the same way that you did under COVID. But the United States can't live under a state of emergency forever. So at some point that'll end. And the numbers will go back to normal, or you'll have to find some other remedy, or you're going to have to pass some fucking a bill to satisfy this. But even still, even to declaring that emergency, there's nowhere near 15 million people being rounded up and deported. And it ain't because sanctuary cities won't let you snatch people out of the fucking jails when you arrest them on shoplifting. The volume isn't that high. And if you think you're going to, like, get every undocumented immigrant out of this fucking country by waiting until they shoplift and then snatching them from a local sheriff's office, you're gonna be waiting a long fucking time. And this, this isn't even denying the fact that there is an issue with undocumented immigration, the drag on wages that it can have, the lack of vetting that goes on when somebody comes across and you don't know who they are, all the reasonable conversations that were had around the border bill last year that everybody dismissed. Trump's like, you don't need a bill, you just need a new president. And now all of a sudden he's in office. What's he asking the House for? What's he asking the Senate for? $250 billion in border funding. Why do you need a bill for $250 billion in border funding if all you needed was a new president? Because if you want to shut the border without declaring a fake emergency, then you have to actually pass a bill through Congress that funds the resources to send down there instead of just making the fucking Texas National Guard and a bunch of other people like Operation Lone Star stand around the fucking border with their thumb up their ass while their marriages and their businesses and their children's grades fail because they've been put in this position on a permanent temporary status because you can't get your shit together. Other than that, I have no opinion.
Speak to the lawyers because it's up to them.
Mr. President, what do you think of the proposal from France?
Say it.
What do you think of the proposal from France and UK of a peace mission in Ukraine with soldiers? And do you think that Italy should take part into it?
Well, I think Italy will have to make that determination, but peace missions are always good with me. I'm okay with peace missions. Yeah, please.
Okay, he doesn't know what he's talking about. What he means is peacekeepers. The guy who's speaking is peacekeepers on the ground. So this is a major thing to Russia. And he just said it like, peace missions are great. I don't know, sure. Okay, so the U.S. president just said he's okay with French and British troops on the ground in Ukraine as peacekeepers, along with possibly Italy, if they want to. But honestly, he doesn't fucking know what he's talking about. He has no idea what he just agreed to. At any normal time in our history, maybe we're lucky that most of the people blow off what the fuck he says is blather or ignorance or bluff. But most of our nation's history, especially in difficult military circumstances, if you said something like that, it would turn the negotiations on their head. It would just shut them down. And it very well may. We might see stories on fucking Russian TV and all their bullshit, whinging about the fact that Trump is all of a sudden on board. Because I know right then, fucking J.D. Vance and the rest of the team over there just puckered immediately when he said that.
Mr. President, have you discussed what areas of cooperation have you discussed with the Prime Minister vis-a-vis Italy and the United States and Europe and the United States? And on China?
We discussed it very briefly. No, we're doing very well with negotiations, I think, with all countries.
This is literally the first one that's shown up to meet on a unilateral basis with him, and she's basically coming with bad news from the EU, like, "Hey, we're doing good. Our inflation's going down. We have plenty of productivity across Europe, and a smaller population, and a less complicated economy than you do. And if we all sort of just ignore you for a while, it will wreck your fucking presidency. We don't even have to retaliate. We can just shrug you off, and it will be enough of a dip to cause, you know, a spike in unemployment. We don't want to do that, but we also won't have a choice if you're just being an asshole." That's the message Maloney is bringing.
Scott could tell you a little bit, but we are doing very well. We have a lot of countries that want to make a deal. Frankly, they want to make deals more than I do. Go ahead.
What does that even mean? And by the way, this is supposedly his. This is like art of the deal language. It's meaningless. This is the kind of shit you would hear in like an 80s rom-com about an evil real estate developer and the blather that he says in meetings to show he has power.
Would you say something, Chris?
Yeah, we've got a process in place. We're working on the big 15 economies. First, we had a fantastic meeting with Japan yesterday. I believe there have been calls with the EU already. And then we...
Sorry, the big 15, you believe there's been calls with the EU already? Gee, are you sure? I don't know. I think so. I think we've called the European Union since this bullshit started. I believe. Fuck me. And again, Japan's an ally. We don't need to be in a pissing contest with them. Japan, like, they build more foreign cars, you know, like the most like purchased foreign car that is made in the United States are Japanese. Nissan and specifically like Nissan and Toyota and Honda. Those three, they have plants all over the fucking place because they responded years ago to, as much as Trump likes to bullshit about this, American presidents and the Congress saying, "Hey, we're going to tariff some of these things if you don't start setting up factories over here." And they did. There's a shit ton of UAW workers that work at fucking Toyota plants who know that Trump is fucking lying.
South Korea coming in next week, and I believe India is also talking, that's moving very quickly.
India is moving very quickly. Oh, you mean like Operation Fart Steed?
Captain's log.
Right? Yeah, since that worked out so well. Nice work, Newsmax. Just way to shit the bed. If you'll recall, you know, one of the big pride points of the Trump administration in the first run was, you know, they were patting themselves on the back about how they had made, you know, like this, they made it possible for us to have multiple vaccines all at once. They pre-bought them, all the stuff that apparently the right wing hates, RFK Jr. hates, fucking all the anti-vaxxer crowd fucking hate, was all done under Trump. And it was because fucking Fauci put him like under a I don't know, a think ray or something. Shrink gun. Dabney would have played Trump beautifully. I agree, because he's a sexist, egotistical, lying, hypocritical bigot. Everybody has their faults. So the idea that hold on one second, I'm gonna bring this up too, because we should probably deal with this before I go out, because this is sort of breaking news. What the hell? The reader. I'm just trying. Okay. So there we go. Finally done. So those of you that are hearing about this news as well, Florida State University, we deal with these things all the time, and they're terrible and terrifying and awful, and it's there are 2 dead. The gunman is now ID'd as a police deputy's son, I believe, sheriff's deputy. Phoenix Ickner, son of sheriff's deputy who is an 18-year veteran on the force. His mother is on the force. Unfortunately, her son had access to one of her weapons, and that was one of the weapons found at the scene. The gunman was also a longstanding member of the Sheriff's Office Youth Advisory Council, who received numerous training programs. It's not a surprise to us that he had access to weapons. The shooter was shot by law enforcement, taken into custody, and hospitalized. Um, there is a thing about this happening in Florida, though, that when it happens in Illinois or it happens in California or it happens in Washington State or something like that, the communities by and large around them rally around them and push back on this. Oh, and Bon Vivant works at FSU and she's okay, thank God. Is that when it happens in a blue state, quite frankly, or one that isn't, stark red like Texas or Florida, the surrounding community and the aftermath are handled in a smarter, more caring way. And the response, there's funding from cities that goes into, improving security on campus, those kind of things. The alumni themselves jump in. But a lot of times when they happen in Texas and Florida and Louisiana, Michigan, places like that, they just get shrugged off, unfortunately. That there's, a little bit of thoughts and prayers, and then they would go back to not giving a fuck. Kelly says, yes, I'm good. Not on campus at the moment, and student union is far away from the office. Crazy texting, trying to account for all my students. Man, bless your heart, Kelly. Anyways, we want to send our love and support out to the students and the faculty and the first responders who have to deal with this shit. And the school personnel and the people who send their kids from, maybe they're from Florida, they moved away and they decided to send their kid to FSU after, or they wanted to go there because they wanted to live in Florida while they were going to school or something like that. Just simple life choices shouldn't have to involve, we've got a deputy's son who gets access to one of her guns and decides to shoot the place up. Now, I don't know the details on this, whether it was a targeted shooting, meaning more than likely something along the lines of domestic violence or unrequited attention or love. I think it was Freud, who was a fuck up and never healed anyone, but he had a couple of good lines. One of which Carlin tore apart, if you're familiar. And the other one was money is not the root of all evil, which is, by the way, a misreading. The love of money is the root of all evil is the actual phrase, because money is just a transitory thing. But loving the transitory thing instead of the things itself is the root of all evil, is what the phrase was, love of money. But Freud said love of money is not the root of all evil. Attention is. The need for attention is the root of all evil. And there's an arrogance to the need for that attention, because if you just need attention, you'll act out. But if you think you deserve attention, that's where the violence comes from. And you could argue that that is what, that's the problem with Trump and Hegseth and that crowd, is that they think they deserve attention. They think we owe them attention. And if they are ignored, they will take it out on anyone. Because again, the idea that this, I don't know if we're gonna hear like he had issues and mental problems, where look, you could say that you'd have to be fucking crazy to shoot at people for no reason like that. But that doesn't mean you're insane. Colloquial crazy is not the same thing as real crazy, and it's important. And stigmatizing the mentally ill as if they're the root of all the violence, when in reality, I would say the worst violence that humans inflict on each other is not the result of mental challenges or insanity or mental illness. It is people who value themselves more than they value other people because of the values that they have been taught or come to believe, deciding that they are worth more than the life of another person. that their need for attention, their need for accolades and support, all that shit, are more important. Okay, thanks, Mark. He gave me the update. 2 people are dead. Sheriff's deputy son in custody. 6 people received treatment. I don't know if that's including the gunman. Threat to campus had been neutralized, but the area and the campus is still considered an active crime scene. One FSU student described him as a normal college dude who was wearing an orange t-shirt and khaki shorts. I was walking, and this guy pulls up in an orange Hummer, and he gets out with a rifle and shoots in my direction. An orange Hummer. So, kid has access to an orange Hummer and guns, wants for nothing in this world. That is somebody who has decided that has he passed away? I don't know, because they said he was treated, but it says neutralized, but that doesn't mean he's dead. So, right, I will not be ignored. Exactly, Nevitz. So what I'm saying is that people will, especially like amosexuals, will tend to brush this off as mental illness, which is in its own way a form of ableism that is in and of itself grotesque. You can be sane and do things that normal people would consider insane. Happens all the time. And all this is people just deciding they're worth more than you are. And because of their own nihilistic life beliefs, or they're just giving a fuck, whatever it is, it still doesn't achieve the level of insanity. It still doesn't qualify as crazy. These people have found a way to meet their needs, and other people are in the way. And we need to start looking at this stuff from the point of view of what people are capable of, as far as how evil and how pernicious this kind of evil is in the in the modern age, of people who think they deserve attention without earning it. People who think they deserve to be heard or deserve a space in a situation without earning it, without putting in the work of convincing people that their way is the right way, or that they have worth on this planet, or what have you. And anybody who takes out their abstract hatred of the world on randos, while they are doing something most of us would consider crazy, they themselves, I don't believe they are. I think it cheapens the act and lets them off the hook. Right? Narcissism is a big part of it. Absolutely. That's why I'm always so glad that my mother has a phrase that she used my whole life. Whenever she was trying to get me to do some chores or clean up or do something, she'd say, make yourself useful as well as ornamental, which was a very sweet way of saying you're cute, but clean your room. And I that being the primary, make yourself useful, that in those moments, in your life, you recognize that that there's an inherent worth of people. Okay. Human beings have an inherent worth, but they can step off that fucking ice floe, and if they're in the ocean, it's their ass. You can throw that inherent worth out the window. I would argue that Vladimir Putin has done that. I would argue that in many ways Stephen Miller and Donald Trump have done that. I have no concern for them. I'm the kind of person that if a bookcase fell on you, I don't care who you are. I won't ask your politics to lift it off of you. If you're in a burning car, I will try to get you out of it. Period. Because that's how I choose to be. That's how I determine my worth, not theirs. If that makes sense. And so it's crucial that we recognize that the lesson that we can take away from some of these things, because the idea that we're going to get some sort of satisfaction out of getting the right wing to kind of come around to the fact that they are facilitating a bunch of this shit is a renewed sense of value in, you know, work and stuff. Yes, and CSL, social media may contribute the YouTubeization of thought and self-importance. Absolutely. And they sort of abstract, you know, kind of Instagram star kind of ideas, just presentational worth. But in your own interactions with your own life, it's hard to find a way through when these things happen, and it's heartbreaking, and it feels, I think it pushes a lot of people towards a sense of almost giving up, or a nihilistic response to it, like, fuck, you know, it's never going to stop. And okay, maybe that's not the lesson we are able to learn or capable of learning from this at the time being, because it involves other people. So what can we take away from it in these situations? In a circumstance where you see something that terrible, and to somebody like, you know, the times I've done CPR, the times I've been in and around car accidents and the like, the idea of being useful in those situations is brought me immeasurable value in my life, and confidence later in life when dealing with other stuff. You know, there's an element of feeling you've earned your keep and a respect for that. And so I would say, these are always opportunities to be kind to someone. We often try to look for a one-to-one A-B logic response to it. How do I respond to this situation in kind to that circumstance? When in fact, you can't. I mean, some of us, you know, live around these areas when they happen, so we can contact people like the fires or something to be supportive directly. But when you can't be, these things kind of just sit up there and fucking haunt you. They just sit. It's like, and I've given the analogy several times of people like walking around with a bag of rocks on your back, of this burden that everybody's carrying around of worry and anxiety about a bunch of shit. And we all have our own rocks we put in there. It's our fucking fault, and it is our responsibility to remove those rocks through, you know, penitence or forgiveness over the course of our life. You fucked up, fix it, take that rock out and get rid of it. You've done it. You've gotten rid of it. Don't revisit it at all. And then some rocks people carry because they believe they have to, socially, nationally, civically, or whatever. They carry the burden of something their society did long before they were born, and those kind of things. And that's a choice. And as long as it makes you act better, I say fine. I've never been one of these people that says no regrets. That whole shit is just dumb. Of course you should have regrets. Regrets are fantastic. They keep you from repeating bad behavior. You should regret shit you've done. You can mend it. You don't have to be tortured by it. But regret can be a very powerful tool to be a better person. And then there are things like this that come along, and life, the news, a story you hear on the media, takes a rock and just puts it in your sack, like just over your shoulder, just puts it in there, that extra weight. And there's so many of them that it can be overwhelming. And there's this belief that there has to be a one-to-one. This rock must come from this circumstance. And it can't, because I'm never going to be in, I don't know what, I don't have a, you know, I don't have any recourse. I'm going to vote for people that believe in common sense gun reform, but that's the best I can do. It's not going to take that rock out, because it's tragic what happened there. It's horrifying. So I would say one of the ways you can take those rocks out of it, and alleviate yourself of that burden, which is not yours, is, but you may feel because you're empathetic and you're a good person. I would say take that rock out by going and being good to somebody. And it doesn't take much. During COVID, one of the things we reminded everybody was like, call a friend, call somebody you haven't talked to in a long time that may feel alone while all this shit is going on. Maybe if you know somebody even who's been through something like this, you know, because I was at New Trier when Lori Dan was walking towards our school. We were locked down. She'd shot 7 people, and she was, the police were trying to find her as she was walking towards New Trier. So a period after that, some of the people who were really scared by it, we would just check in with them when another story would come out. Just go, hey, I know this kind of triggers you. So do that if you could. I'm going to sign off now. I'll be back on at 4 o'clock at my regular time. I wanted to come on early, but I think that's important. It's just something, add that to your sort of psychological repertoire and your value added system in your life, because it can be something you can take situations like these and go, how can I help somebody else? And that will alleviate some of that anxiety and take that stone off your shoulders. Hopefully that helps a little bit. And if it doesn't, I'll be back later with jokes and we'll just try the old fashioned distraction. I guess that'll work. I hope. All right. Much love. I will see you guys in a little bit. Do I have I made a button. There it is. Okay. See you guys in a little bit. And thank you guys for the support. Really appreciate it. Thanks for following. Thanks for subscribing. Thank you for the super chats and being members and all that kind of stuff. It means a lot.